Hello, Johnny from Eurogamer here, and today I want to talk a bit about Paladins, a free-to-play game on Windows and Steam. Paladins just passed 750,000 players in its open beta stage, so it's clearly attracted a lot of people, but it's also attracted quite a bit of negative attention over its perceived similarities to Overwatch. Earlier this month, an open beta launch trailer went live for Paladins and it rang a lot of bells. There's a dude in a suit of armor with an energy shield being attacked by a character with rocket boosters and a big rocket launcher. You've got a big rolling bomb, and perhaps most striking of all, you've got your character throwing a hook on a chain at an enemy before reeling them in for the kill. The trailer doesn't really get across the finer details of Paladins, which we'll get into shortly, but tonally, it feels very Overwatch indeed. Hi-Res Studios co-founder Todd Harris spoke up about the claims of similarity made after the trailer came out, making the very valid point that Paladins went into pre-production years ago, so it's not a rushed cash-in as some people were claiming online. Apparently, some of the alternate design approaches they focus tested for Paladins simply weren't as popular as the ones they originally wanted to go with, so they decided to stick to their guns despite similarities to Blizzard's multiplayer shooter. Still, it's hard to shake the feeling the trailer is very much aimed at Overwatch fans, regardless of the intentions of the design team. The marketing for Paladins has placed it very much alongside Overwatch, so I thought it would be useful to try and determine just how similar these two games are. Is one simply a clone of the other, or is there room enough for both? Well, it must be said it's very hard not to feel the presence of Overwatch looming over your shoulder when playing Paladins. The presentation is very similar. Even before you get into a match, you're hit with a big orchestral score and some very familiar menus, including some loot boxes you can open each time you level up. Fighting to capture a control point and then push a payload also feels very similar, right down to the way the payload itself looks and behaves. But really, it's in the characters that the two games hew closest to one another. The champions of Paladins and the heroes of Overwatch both have abilities with cooldowns bound to different keys. Of course, that's nothing new to video games, but it's the similarities between some of those abilities and the characters around which those abilities are arranged which is most striking. To explain what I mean more thoroughly, let's isolate a few characters in particular. Fernando is a character in Paladins geared very heavily toward tanking. He has a short-range flame gun with an ability on cooldown, allowing him to fire a gout of flame over a greater distance, doing more damage. He can charge at his enemies and also has a mobile energy shield, deployed in front of him in a reassuring blue rectangle, which is when Fernando, a swarthy Spanish knight in a high-tech yet still medieval-seeming suit of armor, most closely resembles Overwatch's Reinhardt, a swarthy German knight in a high-tech yet still medieval-seeming suit of armor, who also has a reassuring blue rectangle energy shield.
Don't worry, my friends! I have the shield!
Drogoz, meanwhile, is a dragon who has a big rocket launcher and some rocket boosters on his back, allowing him to burst into the air and hover while dealing a lot of damage at medium to long range, very much like Overwatch's Pharah, a rocket jump specialist who also sports a handheld rocket launcher and a powerful exosuit. Kinessa sports an assault rifle that doubles up as a sniper rifle. When scoped in, it does more damage if you take your time between shots and allow the rifle to charge up fully, which is conceptually and functionally identical to the gun sported by Widowmaker. Kinessa can also throw out 2 electrical mines, where Widowmaker can deploy a single gas mine, and where Widowmaker uses a grappling hook to traverse the map quickly, Kinessa can throw out a teleporter that zips her to the target location shortly after deployment. There's simply no getting around the fact that, however coincidental, these characters are extremely similar in both design and execution to some of the heroes of Overwatch. Indeed, when I started playing Paladins, I found myself naturally drawn to these characters and far better equipped to use them because, well, I felt like I'd played as them before. As inescapable as that sense of familiarity is, however, it's important to understand it only goes so deep. Paladins has committed very heavily indeed to the idea of build management. See, in Overwatch, you pick a hero and they come with a set of specific abilities that you're powerless to change. With all unlocks being purely cosmetic, you know that if an opponent picks the same hero, they're using the exact same character. Everyone has access to the same pool of characters, meaning success in Overwatch is built on good hero picks, smart team composition, and, of course, good play. If you see an enemy using the same champion as you in Paladins, however, there's no guarantee their champion will behave in the same way as yours, due in part to the card system. The card system is a roster of unlockable perks specific to each champion, of which you pick 5 to form a loadout. You have 12 points to allocate across your cards, allowing you to prioritize certain perks and gear your champion toward a particular playstyle. So while you may end up going toe-to-toe with the same champion, one of their abilities might have a faster cooldown than yours, or conversely, perhaps they don't realize your health pool has been bumped up by 200 points. It's a huge system of variables that makes you think about how you want to play a champion in a very explicit, codified way. It makes things a lot more unpredictable, carrying with it huge implications for the metagame, and it casts Paladins in a very different light when compared to the more rigid character system employed in Overwatch. Paladins also changes how its champions play by including a system of item purchasing. In each game of Paladins, you're given the opportunity to buy items for your character using currency earned by killing others and playing the objective. These items are effectively the answer to hero switching in Overwatch. See, if you start a match in Paladins and come up against a champion who's very good at using stealth to get around you, well, that's kind of tough from a character perspective. You can't swap champions mid-game. You can, however, buy an item that will increase your ability to spot cloaked characters, which will give you a far better shot at countering them. You can buy these abilities from the start of each game, though your starting currency limits which ones you can afford from the off. Items are split into 4 categories, and you can only purchase one from each, after which you use your money to upgrade the ones you have. So in the same way you might head into your first team fight in Overwatch and then tweak your team composition, Paladins will have you feeling out the enemy team and then purchasing items accordingly. There's also the simple fact Overwatch doesn't put you on a horse every time you respawn because that gets you back into the fight quicker. I mean, I'm not sure why they included them in Paladins, but it'd be remiss of me not to mention it, because it's really weird. And finally, while several of the champions in Paladins are undeniably similar to Overwatch heroes, they often have other abilities that make them feel a bit less familiar, if not exactly unique. For example, let's revisit Drogoz. The jetpack and rocket launcher are both very similar to Pharah's, yes, but then he can also spit out a big, slow-moving ball of goop, which does damage on contact, but also debuffs your enemies for 4 seconds, making him into a useful initiator as much as a damage dealer. His ultimate is also unlike anything Pharah wields in Overwatch, as he charges across the map to deal 100% of the target's health as damage. Granted, that's practically identical to Reinhardt's charge in Overwatch, but when you take that ability and stick it on your jetpacking, rocket-firing character, that character starts to appear and play very differently to their Overwatch counterpart.
Behold the Dragon's Fury!
So, is Paladins similar to Overwatch? Well, yes, of course it is. But to say Paladins is a clone of Overwatch would be to do it a huge disservice. Paladins definitely has enough going on in its own right to let it stand on its own 2 feet, and while I don't think those comparisons will ever really go away, I'm confident Paladins will be able to carve out a place for itself and a committed user base without any trouble. Perhaps the question we should be asking then is not whether Paladins is too similar to Overwatch, but whether Overwatch would be as huge as it is today if Paladins had come first. Let me know your thoughts either way. Hopefully you found this video interesting, and if you did, well, we've got plenty of others. Granted, a lot of them are about Overwatch, but hey, Overwatch is a pretty great game. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Bye!